Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. We got one of our favorite actors on the show today. Mr. Joshua Peck is with us here. He's got a new book out, Happy People Are Annoying. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Sir, thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad you're embracing Joshua because I feel like I don't get called that enough.
Dan and I like to go by government names over here.
Really?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
What is it you feel like? I mean, I guess brevity is a big part of life in the digital age, but I think the UA part is pretty brief. Mm-hmm. I mean, goddamn, how short does your name need to be? I'm just gonna call you Jay from now on.
I feel like that's where we're headed, right?
And then Ja.
Just Ja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always wonder that because I have obviously friends, Christophers and these people that I only know as Chris. Like, it's like a different person when I hear Christopher.
Same, but like you were a different person than what I know you as. So everybody knows you as Josh. I have an interesting story of how I first came across your work, which is the Wackness. So
wow. I
did not ever see an episode of Josh and Drake. I had seen, billboards in LA and everything else. There was an award called the High Times Award. I don't know if you're familiar with High Times magazine.
Indeed, I am. I very much am.
Oh, you are? Okay. So your movie and a film that I was in was up for Best Picture that year. And I had never heard of the film, and I was at Sunset 5. And I was like, dude, I'm going to dip in because we had to do a screening next door. So I dipped into your movie, and it was incredible. I mean, just absolutely incredible. And I called my agent and I was like, holy shit, not only are we not going to win this and we might as well just go there to smoke weed, but I think this kid could be nominated for an Oscar with Ben Kingsley. I thought both of you guys were that lights out in the film that it deserved Oscar nominations. Did you feel like that at the time?
Oh man, I mean, that's so kind. And anyone who goes, I really had no, awareness of you and Drake and Josh. I just know you from this little indie you did with Ben Kingsley. I think for most of my life that you couldn't give me a higher compliment because that's all I wanted to be known for. But look, I was just so proud to be part of this thing that it seemed like people really dug, and it was New York and it was hip hop and it was my favorite actor. I mean, I was literally starting at the top because Sir Ben is like an idol of mine. So all those things considered, I couldn't believe it. But it's so funny you say the High Times Award because I inconveniently got sober like 4 months before that movie came out. And it's a pretty like weed drug movie. And I was like, I really screwed this up. Like I could have been smoking some of the best weed on earth for free. What more could a 21-year-old ask for? But, I've never been great with timing.
Dan, you would have loved this award show. There was a green carpet and then they had trash cans. I mean, full trash cans of weed in the back, and you could take as much as you wanted. They gave you Ziploc bags. They gave you like boxes to hide it in your car when you left. And surprisingly enough, because I think James Franco won that year, he showed up.
Right.
And then like the award is an actual bong that you can smoke out of. Which is incredible, and I was pissed about it like for years. And I went over to Anna Faris's house, and it was on her mantle. And I go, holy shit, you won the High Times Award. I was like, did you smoke out of it? And she was like, fuck yeah, I smoked out of it. And I was like, God damn it, dude. So you were sober before that? You didn't even get to smoke out of the award?
I didn't get to. I don't know. Did we win?
Yeah, you won. You won.
Damn it. I'm sure the director probably has it. He's
Fucking
so selfish.
Kingsley's got it. He's chiefing it up. He's just high as shit. That's why we haven't seen him in a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, that became a running joke at the show. It was like, oh, is Kingsley going to show up for this? Like, that would be hilarious.
It would be amazing if Gandhi was like, it's nice to have won an Academy Award, but this is my moment. I mean, yeah, because I think Franco won for Pineapple Express that year.
He did, yeah. It was, and it was a blast. Like, that was probably one of the funnest times I've ever had.
It's funny now, obviously, with how ubiquitous, dispensaries are, especially in LA. And I've been sober since then. But I remember when it first became like, you can just go in. You don't need a recommendation from a shady doctor. You don't need to know 5 people. Like, you can just walk in like it's a Target. And I just was like, I got to see this because this was the dream that there could be an Apple store, but that sold weed instead. And Yeah, and of course, corporate America just screwed it all up because I'm like, this seems very overpriced for not the best weed. Not that I know anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of which, in your book, what shocked me was I only knew you from the Wackness. I did not know you weighed 297 pounds at one point in your life, and you reference that a lot in your book. The weights, especially the 297, because it gets brought up numerous times throughout the book. That's a big deal to you, and it's a big number, as well as obviously sobriety. What was that like as an actor at that weight? Because you talk about it in the first couple of chapters of as a kid just going out and having confidence and being like the fat funny kid. But as you get up, you grow up, that's not really that popular anymore. And obviously you want to fuck girls and everything else. But it seems like it still stayed with you.
It certainly did. I mean, I think it's because it's so public. It's funny. Like someone said to me on Twitter the other day, like, way to make losing weight your entire personality. And I was like, ow. But I think because it's so public and people marry themselves to the first image that they have of you, right? Like Steve Carell is one of our greatest actors, but he's always going to be Michael Scott to many of us because it's so beloved. And that's not a bad thing. But for me, I was sort of walking this line of knowing that I was getting to do something so rare, so special, and that people would die to be able to do. But I was also introducing myself to the world in this body that I really wasn't comfortable in. And I talk about it in the book. I'm like, when you become famous or at least a public person in that way, the world becomes like one small town where everyone kind of knows your name and is sweet to you and wants to give you a free coffee. But it also becomes like your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving who gets shithoused and wants to tell you what they really think, because suddenly like people would just randomly be like, God, you think you'll ever lose weight? Or man, you're so big. Do you worry like that it's going to affect your health? And I'm like, I'm 16. I don't think I can have this conversation with you right now. Like it was open season to discuss how overweight I was. And I think that was really impactful at that age where you just want to kind of be typical.
Yeah, and Drake and Josh in particular, like even though I didn't see it, it was so famous and everybody else did that I knew the name of the show. I knew the people on the billboards, and that's how big it was. I can't imagine going through that as a kid and people telling you how fat you are when you have this huge TV show where you're literally on TV all day long just being a big fat person, and people are walking up to you in the street going like, "You think you'll be healthy? You think you're going to live?"
Exactly. You think you keep both your legs? You think you can hold on to that foot of yours? No, I certainly, it was a weird, look, in a weird way, I believe it was like my silver lining, and in that people would say like, how have you been able to sort of, even though I surely had my like dumb, stupid teenage years where I could have lit my life on fire. Like I've sort of been able to stay away from as many of the tropes of child actor turned adult actor as possible. And I say, like, I think the thing that saved me was that I was overweight at a time where I was becoming this public person. So I never became too impressed with myself because I was always holding myself back. I was always like protecting a part of me because I was too afraid to get too impressed with myself. Because I knew I was like, yeah, but I'm like the funny fat guy. Like I'm satisfying a role that people are used to. Like it's not me. It's like a little bit of talent and girth. So it was a weird thing to walk.
Were you able to get girls? Because I would imagine being famous, you were still able to get no? Even though you were on Drake and Josh and all that shit, you weren't able to get girls?
I mean, maybe, but if a girl ever asked me on a date, I'd be like, I would love to, but I'm actually spending the night alphabetizing my DVDs, and I made a commitment to them first. But
is that autism? What is that?
It's probably
touch of autism.
It could be somewhere on the spectrum, but I just didn't. You're right. I certainly probably had opportunities to be thoroughly young and go to parties and meet girls, but I wasn't comfortable.
That's wild. I can imagine. I worked with a bigger actor one time, and he was super famous. I'm not going to say who it is, but anybody who's listened to the show over the years will definitely know. And he was the same way. Like he was just like, dude, I feel uncomfortable hitting on girls because I know if they do want to be with me, it's probably for fame, definitely not my looks. And this guy still struggles with that to this day.
But then I'm sure we all know, like, growing up, there would be these kids who would like jump in the pool without a shirt on, and they'd have like a belly, or like, even when I was like 16, 17, like, and I literally would not enter a body of water unless there weren't people around for 50,000 feet in each direction. But like, there were guys who were totally unencumbered by being the big dude, right? Like, where it's just not a thing for them.
Yeah, I had a buddy in high school who was he was huge, and but he was fucking hilarious, and he landed like the hottest girls on the planet, and it was fucking insane. And then that's when I realized, I was like, oh man, it really can be about personality, because the way he carried himself, he didn't give a shit, and also he didn't have any money, so he had this like broke down station wagon, and I was like, dude, if you're fat, you have a broke down. It was a green, kind of like the one in the Griswold movie. That station wagon. I was like, if you can get girls that way, like, anything is possible.
Oh man, that guy is a superpower. That's as comfortable as it gets. You're crushing it in a station wagon and 75 pounds overweight. Good for him.
So did you lose weight because of the Wackness then?
No, I lost weight before I did the Wackness. I did this other movie called Mean Creek when I was 16, which is this indie that won Sundance as well. And it basically is about these kids on this boat trip, and basically things go awry and one of the kids dies, me. And I basically played a bully in that movie. But it was the first time where I wasn't just like the token best friend or bully because of my size, like one-dimensional roles. Like, this was this incredibly tragic, flawed character, and we really felt for him. And after I did this part and the response was incredible, I was like, I'm not going to get this opportunity again. Like, there weren't Seth Rogans. There wasn't Jonah Hill at that time. It was just fucking, if you were this guy, you did this thing, no questions asked. And I'm not as funny or as brilliant, even close to, like, I wasn't going to be John Candy. I wasn't going to be Chris Farley. I was just going to be like the dude. And so inevitably I just was like, I was ready to lose the weight. I was just so over it. And I knew if I wanted opportunity, I would have to do it. Yeah,
because again, it was such a drastic switch in between those years, right? That it was just like
about 2 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight to lose in 2 years.
Yeah, well, I was ready. It's amazing how quickly your body lets go of that weight when you're actually trying, because it's like, I don't want to hold on to this. Like, but I did love when some kids would come up to me scared at the mall because they had just watched an older episode of Drake and Josh, and now I looked 100 pounds lighter. They're like, are you sick?
Do you have cancer? Does Josh and Drake have cancer? Do they have cancer? Are they going to die? That's funny. Another thing that I really appreciate in this book was your honesty about pivoting from movies into social media in that world, and then like really throwing yourself in. I didn't know you were at 1620 Vine and all that stuff with all those guys. That's nuts, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I unintentionally sort of got this following on Vine because I was a fan, and I started making these videos, and it came at a time where I wasn't exactly crushing it as an actor. And people always say, like, how did you did you know that you would have success on social media? I'm like, no, if I was Leonardo DiCaprio, I never would have made a Vine. But It was born out of necessity, because I was like, I can't go through another pilot season where I'm questioning all my life's choices. It's like, I got to give myself a break, if not for a couple months. And I got this really big following, and I leaned in, and I didn't know what it was. And I had people telling me, like, this is going to dilute you. No one does this who comes from the traditional space. But it just felt good to finally be able to reach an audience without having to like beg a casting director to like, please show my tape to the director. And yeah, and then sponsorship and money followed, because that's where the eyes were, and brands knew that. So it allowed me to like make money outside of show business, which was the greatest. I remember I made the first $5,000 I ever made from a brand deal. I had to like open up a PayPal account to accept it. And I like called my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, we're going on vacation, because I just couldn't believe that it was possible.
In the book, I think you said you went to Bali, right?
We did. We went to Bali. I used all that $5,000.
Okay, well, you even went as far as to say, I'm an economy plus, dude, in this book.
It was lovely. Shout out Cathay Pacific Economy Plus. The seats have a nice pitch. The recline angle is glorious.
That's awesome. Because again, why I really appreciate this is I went through the same thing where it was like your publicist says don't put anything about your private life online, keep it all to yourself so you can play more characters and all that other bullshit. Right. And then I got a call in like a panic in like 2013 that was like, put everything on social media. Everybody's doing social media. But at that point, it felt too late to me. I didn't really understand what Vine was because it was only 6 seconds.
You don't understand how any of the devices you have now work.
None, none whatsoever. But how do you make a joke in just 6 seconds? And like I was so used to writing sketches and half-hour comedies and scripts that I was like, how the fuck do you just do Vine in 6 seconds? And it all seemed like dads or like, funny fall down videos where it was like, oh, fat girl in a rope swing. But how did you crack in? Do you remember what your first video was?
I think it was making fun of the fact that my car was getting towed, that I had like a flat tire. And I think the truth is the reason why I was successful was for the same reason why I like wasn't booking jobs, was that I had this like sticky, big sitcom-y sensibility that because I just grew up loving those shows. And then I was on one for so long that I just was big and it worked in 6 seconds. And, like, as you know, comedy's economy, right? No one has ever said in the history of the world that joke was great, but it could have been wordier. Yeah. And so I just basically was like, how can I work backwards from a punchline? Like, I know where it wants to end and I just need to have the right setup. And eventually, yeah, it just was a format that kind of worked for my sensibility. I got lucky in that way.
Now, did you integrate to like Instagram and everything else and Twitter from Vine? Or were you one of those people when Vine got shut down overnight and you were like, oh shit, what do I do with all these followers?
I think that was certainly losing 9 million followers in a second was not the best feeling, but anyone who was on Vine saw that coming. And I mean, more so than even me, like some of the really smart people had translated years prior to that happening to YouTube and sort of Instagram. Like they really diversified, but we all knew because like we would, I talked about this, I don't know where, but like this was when I was the #1 on the platform at Vine, and no shade on Vine, love it, RIP. But I remember like a year into it, my agent was like, got you a meeting at Vine headquarters. I said, bet, great. Let's do it. We're crushing it. So I go in to meet, and this assistant comes out and goes, and very lovely assistant goes, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey. And he's like, you want snacks? We got great snacks, tech. I'm like, okay, sure. I'll take a handful of dry cereal. And then he goes, yeah, there's some computers and there's some, conference rooms and all the higher ups are busy, but you want a hoodie? I was like, okay, yeah, who couldn't use an extra hoodie? That was it, bro. That was it. And that was my meeting at Vine headquarters. And I'm like, this thing's going down.
No way.
I just felt like they weren't doing the one, like, and what do I know? But like, it seems to me like the great thing about a healthy startup is the ability in which to pivot and take feedback quickly. And here we were, all these people on the app constantly who were like giving them feedback, like change this, improve this. We would suggest this. And they just weren't able. They just couldn't pivot.
We talked to Malcolm Gladwell about something like that a couple of months back about what I call a high volume meritocracy. That's like one of the hallmarks of a really successful startup, is you process as much data and information as you can and turn that into policy facing outward, like at the earliest possible opportunity. And they failed. That's one of the biggest tech failures in the history of tech, in my opinion. Not necessarily because a lot of money was lost, but they had a captured audience. Yep. And all they had to do was keep it going a little while longer, and they would have made hundreds of billions of dollars over time, probably.
Yeah,
right?
It's strange because, as this was going down, it felt like Instagram was already picking it up and going with the 10-second. Stories used to only be, 6 seconds, and then I think it pushed to 10, and then 15 seconds. And they were essentially just doing what Vine was doing. And then there was one other site that did it as well. When you took a meeting at Facebook, how was that over there? Did you get to talk to anybody cool? Or
So Facebook has these business development people that work in the company, and their job is to help businesses that violate all of Facebook's rules get around those rules.
Really?
And that's
Okay.
it's so fucking bizarre. That's who we would talk to on a regular basis.
Wow.
Because the company had Rifle in the title.
Black Rifle
Obviously,
Coffee.
they
Yeah.
didn't care for that too much. We also did quite a bit of super fucked up content that we posted natively on all of their fucking sites. They weren't too thrilled about that either. But we also spent, sometimes $100,000 a day on advertising there. So they didn't want to. They're capitalists at the end of the day, like everybody is, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to turn the money down. So that was my experience. We get in a room with these two women, and they bring in different folks that work inside the company or outside the company as contractors, and like, hey, if you do this, this, and this, like if you don't show the actual muzzle pointed towards the camera, the automatic detectors won't pick it up. So you don't have to worry about that anymore, right? Like just little stupid shit like that.
Wild. And you're saying at Vine, they just gave you a hoodie and they were like, yo, man, take the cereal and be on your way.
Well, that's why Facebook's worth $1 trillion and Vine doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
It's crazy to look at TikTok now because I'm like, this was everything we asked for.
Yeah.
But it'll certainly go down in the annals of business schools everywhere, like the gaffe that was Vine, unfortunately. But I appreciate it because it literally was my entrance ramp into this thing.
Yeah, and for me, like, because I pivoted out of movies and did podcasts, and like all my movie friends in high school and all that other shit were like, I don't understand why you would do this. And I was like, bro, I'm a comedian. Like, they're not making comedies anymore. And the only place that I can use a comedic voice and say whatever I wanted to say is in podcast. And then, because we started in 2015. So we were ahead of the curve, right? For a good 2 years, we were number 2 behind Joe Rogan on the charts. And then celebrity started to flood it. And, we've still been in the top 100 for the last 7 years. But it's been a battle where, there's a new celebrity every fucking day. Bill Maher joined today. And you were just like, all right, sweet, dude. Do you not have enough money? Get the fuck out of the space.
I think, and I'm a big fan of Bill Maher's. And I guess you could just say it's a love of the craft. But at the end of like Real Time where he's like, I'll be at the, at the Hilton in Honolulu. I mean, he's doing massive theaters, but I'm like, word, Bill? Like, really? Are you over it? But he loves it. Good for him.
He does, man. I remember he was doing something in Atlantic City, and, he was getting shuttled around at Atlantic City, and I was like, God damn it, dude, you're Bill Maher. What are you flying across the country to go to AC for? Like, there's no need for that. Don't you have enough? And apparently the answer is no.
No one should ever go to Atlantic City.
I agree.
Yeah, no, the people who live near Atlantic City don't want to live there.
No.
Like it's so crazy, right? Because it's supposed to be Vegas by the sea, and yet it just will never work.
No, you could just sell AC to China or whatever and use the money to build a lake around Las Vegas. That would be a better use of your time than trying to fucking rehabilitate AC.
The beaches are horrific. None of the hotels are close together, so it's not like Vegas where you can just walk down to the next hotel and party. You got to jump in a cab and then go, and then you're like, all right, cool, I'm kind of stuck here. There was a gig that I did in Atlantic City, and they actually put the beach inside the pool.
No.
Yeah, I forget the name of it. So when you go there, the club starts and everything starts, and it's a party. And then women started taking off their high heels at the door. And I was like, oh, shit, maybe this is just AC, and they're getting ready to get fucked up. It turns out that they were taking off their heels to go into the water because there was sand in there. So they had a built-in beach in this pool, and it was all sand on the bottom floor, so like you could dance and shit like that in there if you wanted to. And there was like 200 people in this fucking thing. It was crazy. I want to say it was the Tropicana maybe. They're trying, but it'll never happen.
No, it's more disparate than ever. And those whenever I've been to those like Vegas outdoor pool parties, and there's just like thousands of people crammed into it, just feels like people soup. I'm like, whatever's fucking traveling in this thing is not good for your lower half.
Oh yeah, dude. And how do you do it being sober now? Do you do that shit anymore, or are you just married and done with it? Like, where you're like, all right, great, that's somebody else's life to live.
Nah, married and done with it. The only club I go to is Costco. Like, I'm just not, I don't, yeah, I like, I have to be cognizant of that because I don't want to become like that guy who's just like only thing is being a dad. But I really, I get a kick out of it. And I like doing certain, I love going to a good restaurant. And, Joe Rogan always talks about that place in in Venice, Felix. It's an Evan Funk restaurant.
Yep.
And I was like, and I like really worked hard to get the res. And then at the last minute, it was just me and my kid. And I was like, wow, I'm going to go to this like bougie hipster restaurant. I'm going to take my 3-year-old and feed him, $40 pizza. But it was great. So I try to stay young. I'm 35. I have a good time, but I do own a pair of Birkenstocks. I'm not going to lie to you guys.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. Do you think you'll be sober forever? Because I know that was a big point all throughout the book.
I can't say forever, but it works for me. And I think like a lot of people, when they hear that I got sober at 21, they think like, wow, don't you think maybe you were just sowing your wild oats? Like, who isn't an alcoholic at 21? But for me, because I was so overweight and then it transitioned to kind of the other stuff, like I just had enough data to support that I overdo shit. Like I can't handle it. I need moderation. And when I do, I get to be on wonderful podcasts like Drinkin Bros. And when I don't, I'm, in more compromised positions.
This is an extremely compromised position, just to be clear.
I'm ready. Good.
Yeah, this show definitely is, man. Another crazy story you told in this book was about the Red Dawn remake. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. How you were like, dude, I'm an action star now, and I need to train with Navy SEALs. One of the lines in here was, I probably trained with one of the guys who killed bin Laden. He's actually a buddy of ours, and I could tell you definitely didn't train with him because he's not that athletic.
Solid.
You wouldn't be able to pick him out of a lineup.
Oh, at all.
Honest.
You wouldn't he looks like he's just a ginger-haired guy where you're like, oh, I might have seen him on St. Patrick's Day, but he doesn't look like he's worked out a day in his life.
But that's what I like about SEALs, right? They usually are somewhat unassuming. I mean, they're usually pretty built, but I like that. Like, I remember the 2 Navy SEALs I worked out with, Dave and Logan, shout out. Like, Dave was probably 5'6" and looks like he would like be the one climbing through like air conditioning shafts at embassies. And then Logan was like this 6'7" Adonis sniper who looked like he could break me in two. And I was like, both of you guys, I'm sure, had your applicable roles in our fighting forces. But yeah, I mean, I lose all this weight, and like I'm all I want in life is to not be the kid actor and to not be the funny fat guy, but just to be an actor, like without any sort of like prerequisite. And I do the Wackness, like you said, and I'm like, wow, like this is possible. And then I get this role. It's like the action star, and I'm like, there we go. Finally, like I've willed this for myself, except I was totally unprepared. It was ridiculous for me to play Chris Hemsworth's brother. I don't know who made that choice. And I'm just like there failing at being trained by these Navy SEALs and trying to look like a real man. And in doing so, completely just came off like a jerk off and basically just ruined it for myself. Like I just look, the movie's fine. I'm not great in it. Mostly people don't even remember it in general, but it just stuck out to me of like, wow, you got the opportunity and you nosedived this into a hot dumpster fire.
Yeah, because you bring up that numerous times about what a dumpster fire it was and how bad the reviews were for just your character in the movie. And
there were a couple, yeah.
And the wild thing to me was like, you didn't have to tell any of these stories in the book. No one would have ever known. That could have stayed way down deep inside. I mean, you share like the most fucked up shit about your life that no one would have ever known. You could have taken it to the grave. Why do that? Why make that choice to do that?
Oh man, now that you say it like that, you're so right.
No, he's completely wrong. It's the same reason that remember Josh Hamilton, the baseball player?
Yes.
He was a crackhead.
Yeah,
remember that?
Great baseball player.
And he would just tell people like, "Yeah, I was a fucking crackhead," and then fans of the opposing team would yell at him, "You're a fucking crackhead." He's like, "I know, dude. I said it first." Like you completely rob people of their ability to get inside of your head if you just put everything in your head on the table.
Well, the way I look at it, being a writer, I'm like, man, there's certain stories that no one would have ever known, and you decided to, really lay it out. The Red Dawn shit, you went into like your looks and your facial expressions and all the shit you did wrong. So like, it's almost like you're tempting people to go back and watch Red Dawn now and be like, oh shit, dude, yeah, he was fucking terrible in that. I haven't seen it, by the way.
It's I guess I did. I just look. I know it's mushy, but like the only way I've been able to get through life has been people who have been a few steps ahead of me going like, I was exactly where you were. Like, I was embarrassed beyond belief. I felt lost. I felt like I had, hit my peak, and that I had a specific moment years ago where I had to call a buddy and just feeling like in frustration with life and career and whatnot. And him to literally tell me like, Josh, like your life has been an anomaly. You can't judge your life because you had this great success as a kid. And now like, why hasn't it, just compounded itself? He's like, so it's a long way of me saying I've needed the help of others, of people being vulnerable and sharing their stories and their trials with me. And I felt in this unique position because most people who write these books are like at the mountaintop. Like, McConaughey crushes it so hard. I see his book on your table. And my story is 100% different. And yet I hope that it's slightly accessible, because I'm not that crazy superstar. I'm just a guy who's done well in certain areas, and I'm kind of giving you my truth.
Yeah, McConaughey was on the show promoting his book with us, and he had kind of said some of the similar things where he was just like, I just decided to drop a bunch of stories, like everything about my life, and then just see what happens with it in case somebody else is going through the same thing. Because he had some fucked up shit in his too, where getting hit in the head with a rock and all this other stuff, dragged into a van. Like, it's a wild book if you hadn't read it. But it was the same thing where I was like, dude, nobody would have ever known those stories. And it was just like, I just felt like it was time. What about this moment that you're currently going through makes it feel like it's time to tell all these stories? Is there anything significant, like being a father? What was it exactly?
I think probably being a father's part of it. I think the fact that I'm 35 and I felt like this inflection point, because like over the last few years, I had a lot of, I've been lucky enough to have some great success professionally, but most importantly, like I'm married with a kid, and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of reasonably happy. Like the data would suggest that there's a good chance things will work out if I don't fuck it up. Mm-hmm. And I felt like if I didn't write the book now, I couldn't talk with like such a fresh awareness of what those 20s felt like, of what these moments were, like how fresh it was in my mind, that I'd be talking about it from a different perspective, that of a guy who's 45 and 55 and maybe at the mountaintop eventually then. So I wanted this book to be this like reluctant memoir that's really just like a bait and switch self-help book written from a guy who's sort of halfway through it.
Yeah, because I'm friends with still a few child stars who had, a lot of success as a child like you. Half of them made it, half of them didn't. And it's a crazy world to be in at that age, especially out in that town. Yours was slightly different because you were there, and this is my guess, because of how funny you were, not because of your looks, at 297 pounds, Josh.
Come on, that's a fetish.
You said it numerous times in here, so I'm gonna reference it. But why do you think so many people didn't make it? And I know you've worked with Amanda Bynes and them, and you look at what she's going through now. What is that break later on in life? Because that's what I've been trying to figure out with most of these child stars. Because it doesn't happen right away as a kid. It seems like it happens maybe 10 years later.
I can't speak to the Amanda thing except to say, like, she's so wildly talented. And she was when I met her when we were 14. And I was like, oh, you're 6 months older than me, but you're like so far ahead of me in skill and ability. And I still think she's incredibly talented. So I think I just always want her to win. And I think she can win because I think there are certain actors that, for me growing up, like there were people who, to your point, like got by a little bit on their look or acuteness or precociousness and being a young kid. And they think that's going to carry them. And for me, it was like, I was lucky that even though I didn't know my dad, like I had this really rock solid mom who looked after me 100% and didn't let people fuck with me in this very adult business when you're a kid. And it can certainly lead to some, it can be hard to have to be in a professional setting as a young kid because you're not really allowed to have a bad day, and I think that can weigh heavily on you. So I was lucky to have my mom, and then I just, I talk about in the book, like I've been in acting class since like I was 14, like on and off. Like I I'm constantly working on this thing. I can't stand it. I can't stand that I'm not great at it still after 20 years, or I'm great every now and then sometimes I'm just very mediocre. Like, but I'm obsessed with this thing, and I think it's the thing that saved me, because I think that most people in my position are into the billboards or something that's not the work.
Yeah, I agree. And with the Amanda Bynes thing, I said this on another show. I had a dinner with her a while back, and maybe a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago. And I was completely shocked at her breakdown, because that was one of the most business-minded people I had ever met. And she was super type A, and it seemed like she was going to have her own production company and be like a Reese Witherspoon type. And then there was a break somewhere along the way. And I'm just as shocked as you were, because she was crazy talented. Her show, she was doing sketches, SNL type sketches at a real young age. And I was like, fuck, dude, this girl's unstoppable. And then something happened, clearly. Her parents have a conservatorship and all that other stuff. But I've never been able to figure that one out, her in particular. The others, I kind of understand. Where, you said you got sober at 21. Like, most of those people partied, lived through their 20s in Hollywood, which is a dangerous thing, because there's so much coke, everywhere you go.
Well, now it's mostly fentanyl.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
yeah.
Either way.
But there's so many drugs, there's so much alcohol at all of these events, and then everything you do as an actor throughout your day. Hey, can you meet for drinks at 2:00 in the afternoon on Tuesday? Sure.
Right.
Great. Can you meet for drinks at 6:00? Yeah, that's fine. And you can see how that would snowball. With her, I've never been able to figure it out.
Yeah, and I don't know. Look, I speaking as someone who's had 5% of the kind of fame that Amanda has had, or Britney Spears has had, and knowing how it weighed heavily on me, like, I can't even imagine what it's like to have to navigate that and the weight that it puts on your shoulders.
No, and it's a lot. I don't know, because the other part you talk about in your book was about taking care of your family.
Well, he can take care of his family, because I've got a theory. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
He's from Hell's Kitchen.
Yep.
Right? He's probably Daredevil. You don't have any proof that he's not fucking Daredevil.
I don't, but I'm also I
mean, he's not blind, but Daredevil could have been faking that the whole time just so he could get better parking.
Exactly.
I've got a lot of theories. Those are two of them.
God, I do want better parking. That's for sure. So yeah. I like your train of thought.
You just need a stick.
That's it. That's it.
And if they ask, it seems like you're looking at me, sir. I'm like, are you questioning my fucking disability?
Are you questioning my disability? You can't do that. You can't do that.
Okay. 2022.
Yeah, it's 2022. But for you, because you mentioned in the book, you were talking about taking care of your mom. And that was a big deal to you. Like, I think that's the trappings of that, where most child actors are taking care of their parents. That has a lot to do with it, where you finally have a break. Because if shit doesn't go well, like you talk about throughout your book, because even on Drake and Josh, you dropped your salary in this book to let everybody know, hey, dude, I was not rich. And when you're going through that and you're trying to take care of your family, that's a big burden.
I think that, I just think it's a bit of a misnomer. Like, obviously, if you're on, The Kid from 2.5 Men or Modern Family, it's one thing. But kids TV at that time, when all was said and done, I had maybe, throughout the time we were making that show, my mom and I were living at a 2-bedroom at like an apartment complex, nice amenities, racquetball court. Don't mean to brag, but we had a nice car that we leased, but we weren't living high on the hog. So when the show ended, I maybe had 14 months of runway before I had to work again. And I think, and there's no residuals on kids TV. So it just wasn't that sort of golden parachute that I think people imagine. And, my mom, I talk about this in the book, but when my mom hooked up with my dad, she was 42, he was 62. So I say he was getting Social Security and chicks pregnant. And I just, I when all was said and done, I was, my mom was in her mid 60s, and I felt compelled to be like, you know what, this is certainly a responsibility, and it can feel like pressure at times, but it's kind of an honor to be able to take care of her in that way. It's something I've always done and I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable because, again, you've stretched out your career so long. One of my faves around the house, because I've got kids as well, was the TV series you did with John Stamos. And I thought,
grandfathered.
yes, dude, I thought that was perfect casting. How cool is Stamos in real life?
Dude, Stamos is incredible. He smells incredible. He smells like a old drawer, like a leather book, like just like a dude, like tobacco, and probably like how you guys smell, just like a man. And he's just like he's the best. I can't believe it's so rare to become good friends with anyone in this business because we're all weird gypsy camp friends. Like where you spend 3 months with someone and you're like, we're going to talk forever. And then you never see them again. But to have become good friends with John Stamos seems impossible. And yet it happened because he's such a good dude.
Yeah, one of our buddies, Giannis Pappas, is good friends with him. He's they're always over there cooking and shit. I don't know why.
He loves to cook.
Yeah,
well, they're
weird.
Greek.
You got to think, as far as Greeks go, Stamos is probably the number one Greek.
In Hollywood right now?
No, just in general.
Yeah.
Like, name a Greek that's better.
I'd say
Socrates.
Giannis.
Fuck Socrates, man. John Stamos, bitch.
You got Socrates, Stamos, and I would say Giannis, probably.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Giannis.
Yeah.
Giannis is up there, but
we'll see after this playoff run.
Well, yeah, we'll see after this playoff run, but Stamos is what I've always told people. He's the only one that could take a daughter, a grandmother, a mom. Like, it doesn't matter. He transcends all age groups, and there's nothing you can do. If Stamos shows up, it's like, all right, sweet, man. I'll never be that good looking no matter what I do.
Yeah, man. He's still that good looking, and it sucks. It's not fair for the rest of us. But I'm a big fan of Yanni Pease, man. It's so cool that you guys are friends with Giannis. He's the man.
Yeah, he's been on the show a bunch of times. Good friend of ours.
I think he's going to be here next week, actually.
He's fucking hilarious. Did you ever go to Stamos' house? And I have a reason behind this question.
A lot. Yeah, I've been there a lot.
Great. Can you explain his fetish with fucking Disney?
No, I can't explain it. And you're right. It's a fetish. He loves it. He really loves it. He chooses to go there a lot.
And for the audience, if you don't know this about Stamos, because they did an Entertainment Tonight, like a Cribs thing on him. He has like the original signs, like welcome to Disneyland, like the OG signs from way, way back in the day. And he's got like artifacts from the rides themselves, like Small Wonder or, It's a Small World After All and the Pirate ride and all that shit. And it's all throughout his house.
I've got another theory on this.
Uh-huh.
John Stamos has been sabotaging Disney rides for years. He's just stealing shit. He keeps them in plain sight, acting like he's a collector. So it explains why he's back there again. Everybody thinks he has a fetish for Disney.
Sure.
Really, he's murdering people.
You think he's hiding bodies on
those?
The
QT? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's hiding them in plain sight too.
You think so?
I think John Stamos might be the most brilliant man. Serial killer. That's around right now.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on JFK? Because I'm liking your train of thought.
George Herbert Walker Bush, so Bush 1, killed JFK. He didn't kill him. Lee Harvey Oswald.
Were you expecting that today?
Lee Harvey Oswald is the lone shooter, but who set the whole thing up? It was George H.W. Bush.
Wow. You see? And you thought this was just going to be the guy from Drake and Josh, but we're getting some revelation.
Yeah. Oh, dude, we can go deeper than that. We've had some super fucked up guests on the show. Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself either, so we can go down a rabbit hole of that. We had the guy, Dr. Cyril Wecht, on the show who did all the autopsies for all these guys, and he's 87 years old. He had written a book, and I go, great. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you about every celebrity that has ever died, and I want you to give me the honest truth. And he goes, yeah, what the fuck do I care? I'm 87 years old.
Right.
And so he just dropped all of them, dude, on the show. And it was, people's minds were exploding. They were like, what? But he went into depth on the Kurt Cobain thing, like real in depth, where he was just like, there's that amount of heroin shooting up, you would have OD'd. There's no way he could have pulled the rifle himself or the shotgun. And he said the way it was positioned, he goes, it would have kicked out away from the body. It wouldn't have been just perfectly laid on his chest like that.
Oh, I gotta listen to this episode. This sounds like
it's who else did he do? JBR, John Benet Ramsey.
Yep. He was also like his fame actually. Well, OJ, he did that as well. But there's a lot of the fame came from it was him and that other doctor that discovered CTE shit in the NFL guys.
Oh yeah.
Like back in the 70s and 80s, they discovered it, and they were trying to convince people that that's what's happening, and no one gave a shit.
No one gave a shit. And also he had said that Kennedy's brain was stolen, and that like he was so pissed off about it that Kennedy's brain was stolen, and they've never been able to locate it since. He said it went missing in 1967, and they've never been able to find it.
It's just being grown somewhere.
On one of Bill Gates' farms, probably.
Yeah.
Like, why build that much? Why keep that much farmland if you weren't sewing human ears to the backs of pigs and shit like that?
Speaking of that, did you see that Mike Tyson's weed company now sells gummies in the shape of an ear?
Yeah, genius. Absolutely genius.
He's for somebody that a lot of people think is completely insane. He's pretty self-aware, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, shit. Steve Urkel was on the show, and he was selling Jaleel White. Great guy, by the way.
That is also, by the way, why I thank the Lord every day that my character from Drake and Josh is my name.
So people aren't just busting out a character name. But when he was on the show, he leaned into it. So he was selling Purple Urkel when he came here on the show. That's what he was promoting. So he's got a weed business, and he's all in.
That's the fascinating thing too, right? Where you see it as like I know Jaleel a little bit, and he's like a great guy who's done great and doesn't, I don't think he does anything that he wouldn't do just because it amuses him. But the truth is, once you become a public person, there's no way out. Like that's why a lot of child stars like burn out, because it's like, because what's your option? Like then you go be like a badass real estate agent in Dallas, but you're still the guy from that thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people's ego can't handle that. But I would be down to clown. I would go be that real estate agent in, I don't know, Bastrop. I know you guys are in Austin.
Yeah.
Just somewhere, just like a fun suburb, and have a little bit of land and have a nice life.
Oh, dude. And you could really ride the Drake and Josh thing because, like, let's face it. Are you a sports guy?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So most college athletes who don't make it usually stay in their college hometown and sell real estate, and they have no shame in it, where they're just like, yeah, I was quarterback for that. I'll sign the football. Do you want to look at this 3,800 square foot commercial building too? Because we can, I can sell you that. And I was like, oh shit. We won't say who our realtor was when we moved here, but
dude, that whole audience is aging into home buyers right now too.
Well, maybe 30 years ago it would have been. Now they're aging into people that are paying 40% more rent than they should be. And
exactly.
Not owning anything.
I mean, Case McCoy is making a killing right now in Austin.
God damn it! All right, that's who it was. It was Case McCoy.
Yeah, it's Case
Who
McCoy.
the fuck is
you know
Case
that?
McCoy?
It's Colt
He was the
McCoy's brother,
Yeah,
who's also quarterback.
Yeah, he was quarterback for you too.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Case was going to be our realtor, and Case was hard to get a hold of. He was hard to get a hold of. So
when does Mahomes' brother start getting into real estate school?
he's down the street from you. He's in LA. He's in LA now.
right.
He moved. He's going to ride this TikTok thing as far as it'll go. But look, Pat signed a $500 million deal, $500 million. I don't think that kid will ever have to work, which is weird, but I can see him tumbling down the hill at some point in his life because he's gotten so much hatred at such a young age. I don't know how you grow out of that.
He's also super tall and he doesn't have any muscle on his body, so tumbling down the hill from a physics standpoint seems likely.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen him?
I have, and you're right. I mean, that sucks. I feel bad that a kid who was like 18, 19 is just getting blown up on TikTok. Nobody. That ain't good for nobody. I'm still at 35. Like the wrong comment will hit me on the wrong day, and I'll call my wife and be like, "I'm a good person, though, right?" And she'll be like, "Yeah, well, we doing this again, Josh?" And I'll be like, "I don't know." I'm like, this one guy on TikTok really hit me today.
Do you obsess about it? Do you go and look up the person and their whole family history, and you're like, "Oh man, fuck that guy's whole family lineage"?
Yeah, you should do it like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Just fly to the guy's house and beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, just show up and be like, "Hey man, do you remember that comment you left in September 17th?"
Print the tweet out. Like, here it is, fuckface. I highlighted the relevant parts.
Yeah, it's so tempting. But the truth is like, it's never someone with like a really in-depth profile, or so rarely. Because I don't know about you guys, but whenever I get down about like a comment, I have to remember, like, I've never commented good or bad about anything ever on social media. And I think 95% of people who have anything going on in their life don't either.
I agree, which is why I don't read the comments. Dan does. You don't give a shit. Like
I don't care.
He finds it hilarious.
Yeah.
Like when we
Good
get
for you.
slammed online.
Yeah.
I've never read the comments in my entire life, and that started with one of my first agents when I had the first movie coming out. He sat me down and he was like, "Hey Ross, I want you to know how brutal the internet and can really be, and get ready for the criticism and everything else because it wrecks a lot of people." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I sit in his office and he goes, "Who's your favorite actor?" And I go, I don't know. At the time it was George Clooney, right? So I was like, "George Clooney." And he goes, "Great." So he pulled up IMDb, and IMDb used to have message boards back in the day. And so he pulled up IMDb, and then he turns the computer around and he goes, "Look at how many people fucking hate George Clooney. They say he's ugly, they hate his teeth, they hate his hair." I mean, and it was just endless comments like that. And he was like, "Now you and I both know if we went out to a bar tonight, George Clooney's going to get every single girl in that place, and there's nothing we can do about it." And he goes, "But online, it's awful." And he goes, "If George Clooney listened to this bullshit every day, he'd probably be in a bathtub in St. Louis smoking crack, right?" And I was like, "Oh, you're right." And he goes, "Now, what's your favorite movie?" And so at the time, I was like, "Shawshank Redemption." He's like, "Great. You think that's the greatest movie of all time?" And I was like, yeah, I think it's probably the greatest movie of all time." He turns the computer around and he goes, "There is 12,000 people on IMDb who have rated Shawshank Redemption a 1 star. That was the worst movie they've ever seen in their fucking life. And they took time out of their day to go to IMDb and tell everyone how much they hated Shawshank Redemption." And after that, I was like, I'll never read comments again. I'll never...
This agent of yours deserves a Nobel Prize.
Oh, 100%. He was magic. He was the best. But all the good ones usually end up getting fired or something fucked up happens to him, which is what happened to him. But he was the best, and that was the best advice I ever got. Worst advice was not doing social media. And I'm terrible at it, like Dan was saying. I'm fucking terrible at it now. And we do it to promote. We have a social media team who does shit, as far as story-wise and all that stuff. But if I had started earlier, I think all of this would have been much, much different, a lot faster. But sure. I was super late to it, and I feel like it's too late to catch up because, again, I got a wife and I got 2 kids, and I got a third on the way right now, and it's like I want to spend time with them, and I don't want to come home and Dad's on the phone, posting funny memes or my kid fell down the hill, because that's another thing is people don't want to see you posting shit about your children that's not funny, where they're like, "Dude, Ross, I want to see you posting shit about Anne Frank and things like that. I don't want to see your fucking kids." And that's something that I've been cognizant of, that I'll just probably be never good at it,
It's funny because I have the other experience, which is people love when I post my son, and when he got a proper face, around 2, is when my wife and I decided we're not going to post him anymore because I want to give him the privilege of anonymity until maybe one day he's old enough to say, "Hey, I'm down to be in a photo," or whatever. And it kills me because the business part of my head goes "God, this is an easy 100 million views." But I'm like, "No, I can't do this, Tim. That's wrong." And so I don't. So I'm sorry, son. You can't be on my Instagram.
That's what I struggle with, though, is I look at DJ Khaled. His kid had 1 million followers by the time he was 6 months old. And the interview I saw with him was because somebody brought it up of "Hey, aren't you exploiting your child?" And he goes, "No, dude, I am paying for their college because all these followers will eventually be theirs by the time that they want to post on their own, at 11 and 12 years old." And he goes, "They'll be able to monetize this shit from day one at 12 years old just because I'm building it for them." But I'm with you. I don't want to expose them to that. So I haven't done it yet as a parent, but Dan and I have friends who do it all the time. And they have an account for their 1-year-old. And I'm like, man, this feels gross.
I get being proud and just a dumb, corny parent and wanting to share everything they do with everyone. And if you can, instead of get your 50 closest friends giving you a thumbs up, you can get 50,000 people telling you how cute your kid is. But inevitably, I just feel like it's a slippery slope. And I think that, in my opinion, or at least it applies to me, I think your kid should have a say in it. And until then, they should have the choice of anonymity.
I agree. And therefore, I've kept them off of it. They watch YouTube Kids and all that stuff. My 7-year-old is amped that you're on the show today. The rest of the people he doesn't give a shit about, obviously. But
What, he's your 7-year-old's not a Malcolm Gladwell guy?
No. He will be a McConaughey fan someday, but just, not at 7. Because he's into all the Marvel shit and everything else. And I'm surprised you haven't done a Marvel movie, by the way, or a series. I saw 5 commercials last night for 5 different series on Disney for Marvel. You would be perfect in one of those shows. Are you up for any of that stuff?
I mean, I'd be down to clown. I did a show for Disney Plus called Turner and Hooch that is very canceled, but was very fun. So it was an honor to be premium streamings.
Did you play Turner or Hooch?
Yeah, did you play Hooch?
I actually played the ampersand. I played the I did. I was 2022's TV's Tom Hanks. So no, it was great. I had a really good time. And so, yeah, I mean, something in that vein, like that too, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be like badass action guy, pot smoking guy in the Wackness, even though that's a movie I love. And I hope to do more stuff like that. I also have to embrace, like, I'm family show guy, and that works for me. Like it's also a privilege to be able to, make something that people can sit down together with their grandparents and their kids and everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah, and look, you're booking huge shit still. Like, dude, I saw that you just got cast in Oppenheimer, which is Christopher Nolan's new movie. The cast on that is absolutely disgusting. Have you guys started shooting that?
Yeah, I just got back from New Mexico for the last 2 weeks, and then I have like an incredibly small part, but I'm so honored to be anywhere even near it. And
who do you play?
I play a guy named Kenneth Bainbridge, who was
One of the he ran the Trinity nuclear test in July of 45, I think, something like that. Yeah, he had the second best quote from that day. Instead of saying I am become just whatever the fuck destroyer of worlds, he said now we're all sons of bitches or something like that, which is better, I think.
Did you get to say that line?
I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about what I just said, let alone, I know I'm going to show up on set next week and Nolan's going to be like, come here for a second. And all of a sudden I'm not going to be able to feel my legs. But yeah, it's a really, really small part, but yeah, I'm playing one of the physicists who worked at the Trinity test, which was the big test before, eventually the final part of the bomb.
Yeah, because I'm just going to read the cast off to the audience. It's Cillian Murphy. It's crazy. Emily Blunt is in this. Matt Damon. Robert Downey Jr. is in this. Like, it's a nuts cast where you're like, dude, like when you look down at the call sheet, you're just like, holy shit, dude, I can't believe all these people are here.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And then like you'll be in a scene with one of them and even if I'm just like passing a Matt Damon or someone in a scene and I'll like there will be the small part of my brain will trigger and go like, wow, very believable. like very good acting. Like it's just like, oh, I get it. When you get to see it up close, you're like, it's almost like you're getting to see how the magic trick works, and yet you still don't get to know the secret. It's amazing.
That's a really interesting way to put it. And then Variety, too, leads with this fucking clickbaity headline. It's Drake and Josh star. Josh Peck joins the cast. Like, Jesus Christ. At what point are you going to be like, hey, man, can we put another movie or another TV show or Turner and Hooch or something besides?
Yeah, you need to like kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like murderer Josh Peck starring in opera.
Yeah, Ponzi scheme guy. Yeah. Oh, I got to do
it. Do you call your publicist after that and be like, yo, dude, can you tell him to stop with the fucking Drake and Josh shit? Like, I'm grown up. I'm good looking. God damn it.
I appreciate it. No, I have to make my peace with it. Otherwise, it would drive me nuts. I mean, even today I was doing an interview and she's like, and can we end the interview with your tagline from the show? And I'm like, I would really prefer not to. It's been 15 years, but I am so glad you like the show.
Do you give it to people on the street at least? Like, because like
here and there.
Okay. Because you seem like a man of the people where it's like, Dan and I, we don't give a shit. Like, if somebody comes up and wants a quote from the show or whatever, I don't give a fuck. I'm like, great, let's do it.
Yeah. No, I'll do it. I mean, it just depends. Like, listen, if you're a sick kid, you're getting every line you want on repeat. But if you're like, if you're like a guy who slapped me on the back at the airport and was like, "Hey, do the thing," I might just be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm I have allergies. I can't do it today."
Oh, that's hilarious, dude. So cancer kids, yes. Normal straight two-leggers don't get it.
How do you know the cancer kid's not faking the cancer to get a better parking spot?
I would.
You see what I'm saying?
And if my kid asks, by the way, and we're out and I see you in LA, I'm going to tell him to lie to your face and say he has cancer. Hey, Josh, he's got cancer. Say the thing. Say the thing that he wants to hear.
You just write cancer on his forehead with a Sharpie. See? Cancer.
It could be eczema. I'll be honest. I'm a softie. It could be something completely, pretty benign and treatable, and I would still do it.
Hangnail, Josh. Say the thing. Say the thing.
Yeah.
Dude, we greatly appreciate you being here. Now's the point in the show we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
Oh, man. Well, I have a proper, big brother. Shout out Dan, my big brother from the Jewish Big Brother Foundation when I was 8 years old, who is my brother still to this day, was my best man at my wedding. Shout out Dan. I want him to get it. Awesome. Cheers, man. Looking forward to Oppenheimer. Best of luck on the rest of that shoot. Best of luck with your book, Happy People Are Annoying. Pick it up, man. It's great. It's an honest look into Josh's life, and it's a quick read. It was 2 days for me, and I really enjoyed getting to learn about you. And again, to be honest, if you never would have said any of this shit, Josh, I never would have known, I just would have thought, all right, cool, man. He grew up. He was great. Great looking dude, probably smokes a little weed on the weekends, and is a good dad. I didn't know all this other shit. Oh man, well, if my only reason in writing it was to get on this pod for us to be here today now to learn what we learned about JFK, George H.W., these national secrets, how you knew about the Trinity test and Kenneth Bainbridge, I'm so impressed. So it's a great honor to be here. Yeah, and we've got to know the answer now. I'm not going to ask because I don't want you to get you fired. But when we see that movie together, we're going to be like, that motherfucker didn't tell us, dude. He got to say the line. Yeah, well, I know who he is because that's the second most famous line that came out of that. Yeah. The first is, I am become death, destroyer of worlds, like a Prometheus quote. And then the other guy said, now we're all sons of bitches. And now, Josh, that's a good American phrase to say. Oh yeah, right? And it's always stuck with me since I read it. I read it in some fucking biography about Oppenheimer 10 years ago or some shit. That's awesome. And when you pass Matt Damon, you can say, dude, you don't get to say this fucking line. Matt, sorry, bro. Yeah, go back to Mars, bitch. Grow some potatoes. Keep talking about apples. I'll be over here being a son's a bitch. Thank you for being here, man. Great show, great dude. Josh Peck, check out his book now. Happy People Are Annoying. Appreciate you being here. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.